the shadows. They can never feel the warmth of living human blood in their veins. Their bodies are cold and dead. Dracula versus Frankenstein.
Good evening, and welcome to Pod Stallions. I'm Brian, and with me as always is Jason.
Hello, I'm Vincent Price.
I was stealing that good evening from Glenn Hetrick from the show Face Off. You ever watch that?
No.
Okay.
Is that the makeup? Is it the makeup show?
Yeah, my kids like it, and we exchanged an email. He's a toy collector, and he asked me some questions once, so
nice.
I now consider him a close personal friend.
So he's your celebrity buddy.
Oh, no, well, I don't think he knows my name, but he was a very nice guy.
Nice.
But yeah, no, he always opens the show where he says hello to the contestants with "Good evening." I thought that was funny.
Nice.
Yeah. So seeing as it's Halloween,
it's right around the corner.
Actually, it's today, Jason. We're gonna.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yay! Happy Halloween,
Happy
everybody.
Halloween. We went through a bunch of topics, and thank you everyone for all the amazing feedback on the Halloween costume episode. We clearly struck a nerve, and
people seem to love when we talk Halloween.
It really is our best numbers, our best ratings.
Yeah,
are for Halloween.
Now, do you think that's a reflection on us or just Halloween in general and how much people love Halloween?
I think people love monsters, and I have definitely always been kind of open about that on the site. How much I like monster toys,
that's true. That's true.
It may be, I gush a bit, and we do this whole month of Halloween, so maybe people know that we're a one-stop shop. I don't know.
Can I just tell you, just to digress immediately, because it wouldn't be Pod Stallions if we didn't go off topic in the first 45 seconds?
We haven't even told anyone the topic yet.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Should we tell them first and then I'll go off topic?
No, go off topic.
There's something very, very heartwarming. It literally warms the cockles of my heart. When I go on, because Plaid Stallions is one of my first stops every morning to check the internet.
Me too.
I hit CNN. I hit Pravda, the Martha Stewart homepage.
Surprisingly, a lot of swearing on that one.
Cat Fancy.
Yeah, I didn't want the swearing.
And then Plaid Stallions. And the monster stuff, this is my favorite time of year to go visit Plaid Stallions every morning because of the great pictures of the monster stuff. And I really don't have much of a desire to own this stuff. In any way, even loose necessarily. I mean, I love it. If it fell into my lap, I would love it. But there's something just that puts a big fat smile on my face when I look at the world's greatest super monsters by AHI, like the Bendies, the squirt guns, things like that. And the packaging is so primitive and cheap yet gorgeous. It's like there should be a they do those galleries where they're like this month it's all about Ghostbusters and this one's all about He-Man, and someone should get one going just for that stuff and do interpretations of this amazing packaging from the mid 70s. I
couldn't agree more. It's we've talked about it before, but it's just the Wild West, and I'm enamored with this stuff. And the thing that really drives me crazy about this is there's nothing left for me that I can afford. There's like carded creature stuff I need. Well, there's always some guy in Japan willing to kick your butt on eBay. You just kind of have to be
Japanese doing it again.
They love the creature.
You need to get it. This is where we get a Kickstarter going.
Yep.
For Heiler.
Buy me toys.
To buy this stuff. No, there's just something really gorgeous about it, and I just love looking at this stuff. That's why I always love hard copies of stuff and books of collectibles. I mean, websites are great, but if I can get, the hard copy to take with me everywhere and just pour over these pages, I love it. I study
Kirk Hammett's Too Much Horror Business is
Yeah,
essential.
I gotta get that.
And Dr. Shocker's video, Daniel Roebuck's Dr. Shocker video. Get those two things.
And let's not forget.
Wait a minute, it's right here. Dr. Shocker's Vault of Horror. Get.
And let's not forget a lovely little book called Rack Toys.
Available still for $19.95. Actually, you know what? I will say this. I will announce
Praise
this publicly.
Playthings.
We are not going to last until Christmas this year. If anything, I think we're going to be out of stock soon. So
I was going to say, maybe you want to reword that.
Yeah.
You are soon going to be out of stock. If people don't hurry, they're not going to get the Rack Toys book for Christmas.
That's correct. The hard copy edition. I am still hopeful to launch a digital copy in the new year, but there's nothing quite like holding a book, is there?
No, there isn't. And on that note,
let's talk about movies.
Talk about our
topic.
Today's topic.
Well, that was a windy road nowhere. So what we thought about, we kicked around ideas. We just thought we'd do our top 10 favorite monster movies. Now, I want to put the Ibid in here because I used to write top 10s for Topless Robot. This is not top 10 the best.
Right.
This is not top 10 the scariest. This is just favorites.
So
if you want to write me an email that says you forgot, no, I didn't. These are my favorites. They don't make any sense.
And also, if I say it once, I'm going to say it a dozen times in no particular order.
Oh, no.
This is not a top 10 list that's actually in an order of top 10. This is, Brian threw this topic out to me just the other day, and I immediately went, yeah, like I can do that. And then it was surprisingly more difficult than I thought it would be to come up with 10 or to limit it to 10. And also, and this is where this would be an interesting episode if we ever get to it, possibly some controversy in some of these titles and what constitutes a monster movie. I remember a great interview once with John Sayles talking about Alligator because he wrote the screenplay for Alligator.
Yeah, it
and
shows.
He stressed it totally does. He stressed several times that it is not a monster movie; it's a creature feature. And there's a difference.
That's tomato. That's semantics. And we are not prepared for that battle. However, this is an incredible amount of show prep for us. We both deserve thank yous.
We did, and because we've been getting some shit. I feel from people recently about and also I was finding myself a day or two later kicking myself for going, oh man, I should have mentioned the blah blah. I didn't. So
here's all the blah blah because we wrote stuff down.
Okay. Yeah.
So why don't you go
kick it off? No, you go first. Yeah, because it was your idea.
Okay. My first entry into my top 10 favorites, and again, I want to put out the Ibit. This is not the best films. In fact, this one always got in the TV guide with a bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Its star and writer Paul Naschy absolutely made better films.
Right.
And in fact, I would not recommend this film to a first-time Paul Naschy fan. The film is that's how bad it is, and I
don't even know who that is.
Paul Naschy is a Spanish film writer, star, and director. He is most famous for playing a character called Waldemar de Naschy, who was a werewolf, El Hombre Lobo. And Naschy, even though he had low budgets, he really pulled off the Wolfman bit. Like he was a very good physical actor. He was a bodybuilder, and I love Paul Naschy films.
Okay.
And this one is called Assignment Terror, and it's absolutely probably one of the lower ranked ones. The reason I like it is as a kid I used to read it in the TV guide all the time. It was always on at 3 a.m. It would say Assignment Terror, bomb. Aliens resurrect Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Mummy. Only the Wolfman is socially conscious to save them, or whatever. And I just remember that is the greatest movie I've ever heard of.
That is a great synopsis.
And it took, I think, Michael Rennie's in it, by the way.
Michael Rennie?
Yeah.
Day the Earth Stood Still. He was Klaatu.
He was looking for a paycheck. The movie apparently ran out of money. Oh. And that's why it's so bad. But actually, I don't think a lot of money would save this one. But it's just I love this movie, one, because it's a monster rally, and it really gave me a taste for like all these guys in the same place. Mm-hmm. I really love the Mummy in the film. Naschy's fight with the monsters is really cool. He kicks all their butts. But does
it feel low budget? Does it feel?
Oh, totally. Yeah, it's crap.
It does. Okay.
Yeah, I mean crap, but I love it. I own 3 different cuts of it. Okay. Wow. The reason is I stayed up till like 3 a.m. when I was like 11 years old to watch this. Right. So that's why it's in my favorites, and it is a Halloween. I will watch it every Halloween. And
so the monsters, since we maybe we should do that. Give a quick little profile of the monster in said monster film.
Well, you got
the monsters. You got who? You got
Dracula.
Dracula.
You've got Frankenstein, who is basically just a guy in a sport coat. You've got the Mummy, and it's actually a pretty creepy mummy makeup. I'll post a picture. Right. And you've got El Hombre Lobo battling against Michael Rennie as an alien.
I love El Hombre
lives in a castle.
And who's Dr. So Rennie is Dr. Odo Warnoff.
Oh, right? Are you looking up the film?
I'm looking at IMDb right now.
Yeah, so the original title for the film was The Man from Omo or something like that. And they had planned to have spaceships and lasers and all that, but it's basically turned into a low budget monster rally.
I love the term monster rally, by the way.
Me too. It's a common one. I believe Universal started the trend with the House of films. So
okay,
yeah, which I'm also very fond of, but they aren't particularly that good.
I feel like this episode. I know that some people take notes during some of our shows because they hear about things, toys, shows, whatever, that they hadn't heard of before, and they like exploring. I have a feeling that your picks, this particular episode, I feel like a lot of people are going to be getting out the notebooks and the pens to writing.
If you want to watch Assignment Terror, it's public domain, and I believe it's available on YouTube. And
nice one.
Yeah,
that's best way to see it. All right, great. Very nice.
What's yours?
I think I get the feeling again. Yours are going to be a little more esoteric than mine. Mine may be a little more conventional, but
well, they complement each other then.
I think yes, exactly. You've got some really, really wild stuff on yours. My first one, again, no particular order. This isn't the greatest films of all time. My first one that came to mind was The Thing, the 1982 John Carpenter remake of The Thing.
I love that movie.
I just think this is one of those movies, and I could probably put a top 20 list together of such things where it is near perfection. I even put it. I'm not saying it's the same. It's as good as The Godfather or as good as Raiders of the Lost Ark, but there are certain movies. Midnight Run is one of those for me, where I can put it on, and every single scene, every character in it, this guy has one line or 4 words or whatever. Even the guys that are clearly were just cast that morning as an extra for a couple of words. There's just something perfect about every scene in Midnight Run, and I think The Thing, except for the bit at the beginning when he pours his drink into the computer and gets pissed. Like other than that, it's just about perfect. Like every scene, there is great dialogue, there's great performances. It's clever, it's scary, and
it's funny.
And it's funny, and it's one of those great, geek things that we love so much that was pissed all over, just like Blade Runner.
I remember Leonard Maltin called it a stupid sequel to the classic film.
Oh my God, Leonard Maltin's book, that book I've mentioned that I used to carry around and highlight all the films.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
He gave it, I think they gave it 0.5 star or 1.5 stars, and he spent half the paragraph just going on about how disgusting it was, But what's great about it is it's not only is it on that list, and we could do a whole episode on 1982 and everyone talks about all the stuff that came out that year and how important it was, but very, very little of it that we now hold as iconic, very little of it did very well in 1982, and The Thing and Blade Runner are along those same lines, where they got trashed, the reviews were were bad. Nobody went to see them. People stayed away in droves. And because of the advent of home video, I truly believe this, Blade Runner and The Thing were two films that immediately spring to mind that benefited greatly from the home video market.
Well, I was going to say, one of the reasons that The Thing is so endearing to me is you and I both, and I'm probably a lot of people listening, we're that VHS 14-year-old or 13-year-old VHS R-rated renting kids.
Yes.
I saw The Warriors when I was like 10.
Right.
I saw the American Werewolf in London when I was 11 or 12. All of a sudden there were no boundaries for us.
Right.
And The Thing,
Right.
I have a very close friend who's still in my life who I remember him describing The Thing to me like in grade 8 or 9. In gory detail, and I still think of him and The Thing is so impactful that it's one of those films that if it's on TV, I'm screwed.
You cannot look away.
And I'm not alone in the house. My wife is in the same boat.
Yeah, it's interesting. My wife as well. She really has taken to it, and I don't think that she had seen it before, I first showed it to her 3-4 years ago. What's great about it too is it took this idea from the 50s, the original film, where there was this creature that's frozen in the ice. These people on an outpost, find it. It gets defrosted. It's got a James Arness was the creature in the original.
Yeah, but
it's got like a plant base or something.
It's called Who Goes There.
That was the original story.
Yeah, and the Thing from Another World, I think it's funny when Malton did that. I did some research as a kid. I think there was even an article in Famous Monsters about it. Carpenter's is actually more or less, arguably more faithful to the book.
Faithful to the story. Yeah.
Even the character names.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, what's fascinating to me about it is it's very much like. I know this seems like a strange parallel, but bear with me. When we talk about Doctor Who, and we've talked about our love for it, it's still mind-blowing to me that as a concept, the show alone is a mind-blowing concept for 1963. It's a mind-blowing concept for now, but 1963. But then when you get into things like the theme and the look of it, but especially the concept of the TARDIS. The TARDIS is such beyond, light years ahead of its time, and still one of the greatest creations in the history of television is this concept of this ship that is bigger on the inside and the outside. We all know what the fuck it is, but the point is, I look at The Thing and I think about whatever might have been on paper as to what this creature or what this virus was going to look like, and there was nothing like it before this, and there's been nothing. It is people, certain monster things or sci-fi things have tried to imitate it over the years with no success. Not only
it spawned a ton of imitators.
A mind-blowing concept, the way this thing evolves, and when it kicks off, like when you realize that someone's a duplicate, how it happens and it kicks off. The effects work. It's all practical effects work. This is 1982.
I was going to say it was a crowning achievement.
Oh,
I think it's Rob Bottin.
Rob Bottin was
Rob Bottin, yeah.
And he was a youngster. I mean, he was I think only early 20s when he did this. But it's all practical stuff, and
it's amazing.
Yes, of course you can see certain things and go, well, that's not a real person's head, of course. But if you just go with it, I'd say 90% of it is still mind-blowing effects work, and nothing like it. So I'll stop talking. I'm trying to talk fast so we can get to all of these, but I just love it. I love every frame of it. I love Kurt Russell in it. The cast is fantastic. Maybe the best thing Wilford Brimley ever did.
Well,
I mean, I know
in
it's
and out.
I know it's pushing it, but I love it, and it is one of those things, like you just said. If the thing is on and I'm 10 minutes in or a half an hour in, I gotta keep watching.
You know what? The only way I'd win this argument is to side with you because I love that couldn't too. So
there you go. So I win again. Yay! All right, what do you got next?
I just want to point out that we chose couldn't have chosen more different movies.
Oh my God, yeah.
I chose obscure Euro crap, and you chose an amazing film.
No.
This one is on my list. Is again no particular order,
yes.
But I can't not do it. And that is James Whale's Frankenstein.
Never heard of it.
Oh no, it's a small film, independent.
What's it about?
It's about this girl from Kansas gets swept up in a tornado, and no, wait. It's definitely one I will put on every Halloween. It is beautiful to the point of cliche now.
Really
because
is.
because it became so ingrained in pop culture.
Yeah.
And I think honestly, Dracula succeeds as a film, The Mummy succeeds as remakes. I think Frankenstein fails because the public wants to see Boris Karloff, or they associate that name with Boris Karloff. No one has ever really taken that fingerprint off that character, that Jack Pierce makeup, that amazing direction, that amazing performance. And some people will argue Bride of Frankenstein is a superior film. I like that film equally. I mean, it's not...
Bride is great, but the original, and it really, as good as it is to me, like you just said, a huge chunk of it is Karloff, and just physically what that creature looks like, and it I mean, especially as early design goes, it's never been bettered.
No.
I mean, which
is weird because it's extremely crudely made, but
well, the story, and I never knew this until fairly recently. I saw it or read it somewhere or something. Are you aware of the cool little inside trick that was done? You know how like that right side of his face is kind of sunken in?
Yeah, he took his dentures out.
Did you know that?
I knew. You know what, dude? There's probably nothing I don't know. I would love to be because I've read.
I never knew that.
I've probably read like 20 books on the movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I really love. I love Universal Monsters. So, and getting a book on Universal Monsters is fun. So I've absorbed all that crap over the years.
I did not know. I never knew that he had a false set of teeth on the right side of his face. And
he's also very skinny because he was starving when they made the film.
Yes, that's right.
And if you look at Bride, he's much fuller faced because he's had some success in his life.
And he was also, unless I'm terribly wrong about this, he was supposed to be one of the nicest guys, like just a gentleman of a guy.
I think somebody once described him as. Sorry, that was in a movie. He's never been described as anything but a perfect gentleman.
Did you ever see
Gods and Monsters?
Well, that's wonderful, but I think it's just about the last thing he ever did. Did you ever see that early Bogdanovich film called Targets?
Oh, absolutely, and he's kind of playing a version of himself. That
movie is so disturbing and so far ahead of its time as well. Just the concept of it. People should seek it out if they can. Corman produced it, I believe, executive produced it, and they had like 2 or 3 days left on a contract with Karloff. They had to do something with him, but I'll be damned,
Oh, he was doing.
Corman was determined to get his money's worth and get him for a couple of days.
Karloff just never wanted to stop working. He didn't need the money. He was unlike Lugosi or even Chaney, where I think they fell into some financial peril. I think he just liked working.
Yeah, and so he puts him in this movie as kind of playing a version of himself.
Yeah,
and
being stalked by a killer.
Yeah, it's a commentary on, he's saying my stuff isn't scary anymore because the real stuff that's out there is far more frightening. And there's a guy that, just like the guy in Texas in the clock tower, just decides to get a rifle and start picking people off the freeway. And Karloff's, got it's an interesting film. It's one of the first things Bogdanovich did, but it's really effective and led to loads of stuff from Bogdanovich. But I think it's one of the last things Karloff did. I think
it isn't the last thing he did, but
the last thing he did
should be the last thing he did.
I thought the last thing he did officially was Mad Monster Party.
No,
it's not.
It just probably came out later because it was animated.
Oh, okay.
The last things he was doing were really low budget movies in Mexico, where after he would do a scene, he'd have to go get oxygen, apparently, according to people that were on the set. And they're horrible, and they're best forgotten unless you're a real hardcore fan.
Speaking of oxygen, and we'll leave it here for Frankenstein so we can move on because we've already spent too much time on movies.
Yes, we have.
Wouldn't you say that is it or is it not true that Lugosi was originally cast as Frankenstein's monster,
It's true.
but he turned it down, right?
He turned it down. He didn't want to wear the makeup.
What an idiot!
Well, he was a romantic guy, right? And
Yeah, he was a
the original makeup too looked much more like a golem. I think it had a big Rasta type wig, and he probably, not that he would have loved the Jack Pierce thing, but I personally think that the right choice was made, and history was made for a reason. So, what's your next entry on your list?
So my next, oddly enough, is something called Assignment Terror. No, my next film is An American Werewolf in London.
Never seen it.
Okay, it's about a werewolf that is on vacation. He's got 2 weeks vacation. He has to use it up. Decides to go to London. Again, this would be right in that pocket of that very fertile home video era.
In fact, I remember my friend's parents rented his sister Annie and us American Werewolf in London, and we were 1 year apart.
Annie.
Yeah, so we watched Annie, and then we watched American Werewolf in London. That movie gave me nightmares as a kid because I was too young to see it. And Annie, definitely Annie. Oh my God.
Oddly enough, Annie is more frightening than American Werewolf in London.
Anything with Tim Curry in it, I'm not a fan.
But it's right in the pocket of that stuff that, again, I don't think it did too well. I think it did okay when it came out, but it's also synonymous for me with home video, with my cousin David renting this thing over and over and over again, and also Starlog and Fangoria. I think it got a couple of covers for both magazines. I seem to recall the Fangoria using the Nazi werewolf, that incredible Nazi werewolf mask. I think that or something similar was on the cover. It's very, very graphic. It's essentially a comedy.
It is. It's a
John
very
Landis,
funny and a very good film.
It's a very good film. When it goes dark, it's very dark. The effects work again. You and I had a conversation once about The Howling, because The Howling came out around the same time. I think it was a year before. And The Howling was that Rob Bottin? I forget.
I forget. I know this is Rick Baker.
This is Rick Baker. American Werewolf was Rick Baker, and they're night and day. They're both good effects, but The Howling, it takes like 15 minutes for these people to transform into a werewolf. Whereas the Rick Baker stuff, and Baker had been around, before that. I think he did the remake of King Kong. He worked with Landis before. He had definitely done stuff. He did Star Wars, for God's sake. He jumped in at the last minute and fixed the cantina. But this really put him on the map with these effects.
And Landis, this was one of Landis's first serious films, or semi-serious films,
That's right. He claims that he had the idea from back in the late 60s. He was working as an extra on, it was something like Kelly's Heroes, or one of these movies that he weaseled his way into, certain movies back in the day. And he had the idea way back then, because he was staying in England at the time. But it's great. David Naughton, who used to be the Dr. Pepper guy, he was the lead, and Griffin Dunn is his best friend. Your favorite and one of my favorites, Jenny Agutter, is in it as the love interest. The werewolf is great, and it's got some really scary stuff in it. Some incredible the scene, the dream sequence thing.
Yeah,
with that is incredibly violent.
I love the way the mom, like she's on her roller skates, just goes flying. In that scene.
Yes.
The scene on the moors is especially memorable and
just
terrifying.
The whole opening.
Yeah.
The whole and if you look closely in the pub, Rick Mayall, who just passed away not long ago, who was one of the young ones, and loads of other stuff that he did for British television with Adrian Edmondson, his writing partner. He's one of the pub dwellers in that scene. So I'd put that up there, and actually got some. Actually, both The Thing and Werewolf got some toys eventually. There were
eventually in the postmodern era, I guess.
Yeah. McFarlane-esque figures made of them. So there's my number 2.
Okay.
What do you got for me? What's your number 3?
I can't not put a Godzilla movie on here because Godzilla's synonymous with monsters for me.
Right?
So I put Destroy All Monsters because as
man.
a kid that was jackpot because you got everybody.
Yeah.
And I couldn't tell you the plot right now. I'm sure it involves aliens. The people stuff in a Godzilla movie is all tertiary and secondary. You really just want to see the monsters fight. And I think Destroy All Monsters was kind of the zenith for me.
Well,
I don't know if it's the best Godzilla movie or the best made, but it was just that thing that you always, like, if you knew it was on, you would call every friend you knew.
Now, what was the term that you just used about a whole roster of monsters?
Oh, a rally.
Now, this is a monster rally. This is a
giant monster rally.
This is a giant monster rally. This is Godzilla. The wife is away, and he's got the house to himself for the weekend.
And he has a boy dance party.
He tells all the monsters, "Hey, show up.
Yeah.
Can you call Ghidra and you call Rodan and I'll call Mothra, but everybody start making the calls. And can you run down some of the big names that are in this at this? It's like the Live Aid of monster movies.
There's boy, you know what? I wasn't expecting a test.
I thought you did homework on this.
I did, but now I'm going to get all the names wrong. There's Godzilla, Anguirra, Mothra, Rodan, Ghidorah as the main baddie, and then you've got just tertiary side characters that from different Toho productions.
Ooh, like the Gargantuans?
No, I don't think the Gargantuas are in it.
Nope.
In fact, I know they're not.
Hey,
and I'll actually touch on that with one of my.
I love it when you touch a Gargantua.
I'm going to touch on a Gargantua.
What about the? Is that the one that Godzilla's little son that blows smoke rings? Is he in that one?
Yes.
He's in Destroy All Monsters.
Yes.
You got to give him a pass. Come on, he's not like Scrappy frickin' Doo.
And he's not Godzuki.
And he's not Godzuki. What's he called? Steve? What's his name?
Minya? Isn't it Minya or?
I think you're close. That's sounding really familiar.
Yeah.
Minya? Yeah, well, you know what? This is great because my number 3 is Destroy All Monsters. So we can knock those both off the list right now.
No kidding.
I'm not kidding you. He's on my list.
Great.
Yeah.
In fact, I just bought my daughter a copy of All Monsters Attack, which is Son of Godzilla, because she likes Godzilla movies, and this is more of a childish. It's from '69, and it was the first Godzilla movie for children, and I just think she might enjoy it. And Godzilla's son is super cute. So.
Now wait a minute, but do we know for sure? Is he for sure Godzilla's son? I mean, do you see him? Like, does he tuck him in at night? Does he make him breakfast in the morning? How do we know for sure he's his son in this movie?
You didn't see that episode of Maury?
No.
Oh, yeah.
No. Is he a deadbeat monster dad?
No, he is the father.
He's definitely the father.
Yeah.
And do we know who the mother is?
We do not.
All right. Well, I'd like to get that sorted.
I think it's a little gray, to be honest with you. It's a little wishy-washy.
He did get around, Godzilla.
He did get around.
He's very popular.
Rolling Stone, wherever he laid his hat was his home.
Right? I mean, his manager tended to cover a lot of stuff up, but he did get out and about. All right, well, cool. There goes number 3 for both of us. Can I move on to my number 4?
I wish you would.
And again, I'm telling you that these are numbered only because I have a list in front of me that lists them numerically, but it doesn't mean this is how I feel about them from 10 to 1 or 1 to 10. Okay, so let's just clarify that again. Okay, the 4th one on my list may surprise you because this may be, like we said, some of these titles and choices may be a little controversial, but it wouldn't be Pod Stallions without a little bit of controversy. I mean,
we're rocking controversy.
We thrive on controversy every episode.
Yep.
My 4th on the list is Shaun of the Dead.
Huh.
Little something
I guess zombies are monsters.
Zombies are monsters, right?
Yeah.
I mean, don't they fit?
I think so.
Although I've said this before in public and on podcasts, and I'll say it again. I think more than any other monster or creature or whatever, besides the Mummy and maybe Creature from the Black Lagoon, zombies get shafted more than just about any other creature or monster, because when I see something like The Walking Dead or one of these shows, whatever, and they just Again, I'm not anti-violence. I'm not like, oh, it's too graphic, just, peel it back a bit, No. It's like, whatever. I'm okay with it. It's just when they pummel a zombie in the head, nearly take its head off. That's good enough for me. I don't then need to see the character take the bat and proceed to pummel the head into, liquid, because these guys, the zombie is, that used to be a school teacher. And that guy over there used to be Fred, the mechanic, down the street. They're not evil. They're not they got screwed. They got bitten or whatever. And this is what they've become. So I'm putting it out there for the world, for everyone with the prejudice towards zombies. I'm not saying don't kill them. I'm not saying don't do what needs to be done. Save yourselves, obviously. But can we find a slightly more humane way to take these guys out? They used to be.
You're overestimating our power as a broadcast.
Really? I thought we had literally tens of thousands of people listening every week.
Yeah, I'm just not sure if it's like Frank Darabont is now scribbling notes. Maybe he should.
He should be scribbling notes every week.
Anyway, I love Shaun of the Dead. It's a quirky movie. It's memorable. In fact, I saw at a Halloween, I think they had a costume contest at a local high school about a month ago, because I saw two high schoolers dressed as Sean and Nick Frost's character, and I thought, wow, that movie's old now. Like that movie's 11 years old.
10 years. I saw it in London. I was working on a show. I was there for about 6 weeks, pretty much living in London, working on a show, and I was familiar with Spaced. At the time, I was just about to start exploring Spaced as a toy property, as a license, but I knew who they were, and I knew the show, and so I was excited. So I saw it theatrically in London when it was just about to leave the theaters at the time. So just so everybody knows, it's a comedy. Simon Pegg, Nick Frost, Edgar Wright directed it. Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg co-wrote it together.
It's basically like a movie version of Spaced. A lot of the same people are in it.
Oh yeah, and it's kind of their it's obviously their homage to zombie movies, but it's also the first sort of in a semi-trilogy that they did, which was Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and then The World's End, which came out not too long ago, where they're not the same characters, but they're different, the same actors playing different characters. It kind of feels like the sort of same universe, loads of in-jokes. Very, very clever. One of the things that I love about it, and Hot Fuzz, and The World's End may be the zenith of this, is just how clever it is. There are those kinds of movies, I think, that are very smart comedies that you have to go back and watch 3, 4, 5, 6 times to really get every little nook and cranny of jokes. And this one has been talked about ad infinitum. And in case you don't know, there's lots of foreshadowing in Shaun of the Dead. There's a great bit where Nick Frost and Simon Pegg are in the pub, and Simon Pegg is essentially has just been cut loose by his girlfriend. She's basically broken up with him, and he's crying. And Nick Frost's character is trying to make him feel better and calm him down and tell him the world's going to be okay, whatever. And hang on a second, guys, come on. Sorry, stop it. Sorry, I'll pick up again.
Yeah.
There's a great bit in the pub where Simon Pegg and Nick Frost are there. Simon Pegg's crying. He's sad because the girlfriend just broke up with him. And Nick Frost basically says, here's the plan for tomorrow. And he lays out the plan of what they're going to do, when they're going to start drinking, where they're going to go, et cetera, et cetera. And it ends up all happening. So, but in different ways. So he says, like, we'll start the morning with a Bloody Mary. And the next morning in the yard, the first zombie they see is a girl named Mary with a name tag on, and she's got blood on her.
And then he says, I never got that.
And so if you just listen to his speech, what the plan is, what they're going to do, then it all happens the next day. Where they go, what drinks they have. Get a bite, go wherever and have a bite. And then when you get to the pub, someone gets bitten. It's all there, and it's every one of their movies has that in it. It's very, very clever, and it's very, very funny if you're into that kind of humor. It does get very dark toward the end. It takes a turn that I've never liked, and I wish it didn't. There's about 10 minutes I would yank out of it. I don't like the tone shift, but it's great. And those would be the monsters, would be the zombies. Sorry if I'm talking fast, but we're trying to get to all this before we turn into pumpkins.
That's
what do you
right.
got? What's your number 5?
Another piece of crap that I just love. This is a 1971 or 72 film by Al Adamson called Dracula versus Frankenstein.
What's that about?
And what this was actually a film they created in the late 60s, early 70s called The Blood Seekers. And it starred Lon Chaney Jr., J. Carrol Naish, and Angelo Risito. And I'm not sure about Risito, but Naish and Chaney Jr. had starred in House of Frankenstein, the first monster rally film. So it was, a return to glory. The only problem is the film wasn't very good. It was about a mad doctor experimenting with hippies in California on a boardwalk, and Chaney was so sick and cancer.
It's a documentary.
It kind of. Chaney was so sick and cancer-ridden he couldn't speak, so he's trying to do this like George, tell me about the rabbits thing. He looks terrible.
Isn't he a bit of a drunk as well?
Some have said he liked to tip the elbow. Others would agree. The other thing that J. Carrol Naish is obviously very old. So what they did is just in the middle of it, I guess they decided, okay, you know what? We're going to add monsters to it. So they added Dracula and Frankenstein to the film. Very odd interpretations of the character. Dracula has a large afro. He's played by a guy who went by the name of Zandor Vorkov, who's now kind of reclusive, and people try to hunt him down. His real name, I believe, is Roger Engel. Interesting performance. The Frankenstein monster is played by John Bloom. What's more interesting is they've taken one film, they filmed another film around it, and then they filmed another ending. So they got a different guy to play Frankenstein in the second ending. And for some reason, Count Dracula looks like a member of Kiss in these newly edited scenes. He's got like this super white makeup on and black eyes, and it's like nobody thought to change this. So it's just a jumbled mess. And it, when you watch the film, and I watch it every Halloween because it's so camp and so weird. When you watch it, you go, boy, this isn't very good. Then you put on the commentary by producer Sam Sherman, and if any movie DVD you pick up has Sam Sherman commentary, turn it on because he's really fascinating.
Okay.
He explains how this film was made, and by the end of that, you go, it's amazing this makes any sense because it's just so bizarre. And how the lengths they went to make this absolutely strange film. So I really recommend Dracula versus Frankenstein. This is the Adamson version. Some people retitle Assignment Terror as Dracula versus Frankenstein as well. So
wait, some people renamed it what?
Some people took Assignment Terror and called it Frankenstein versus Dracula. I have VHS cuts of that too. In case.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm sick.
These are great though, because I'm telling you right now, Assignment Terror and this one you just mentioned, I have never seen.
You got to watch Dracula versus Frankenstein.
It's
got the weirdest interpretation of Dracula, and Forrest J. Ackerman acts in it. Tries.
How'd they get him?
Oh, it was pretty easy. I think he lent some props to the film, actually.
Oh, so, probably his Dr. Acula cape.
I think you might be right.
Maybe.
But,
all right. So where are we now? We had 5, number 5 on the list.
Yes.
All right. You ready for this?
Yep.
I feel like this is going to cause some controversy.
I think you want to cause controversy.
I do. I'm stirring it up. All right. You ready for this?
Yep.
Beaches.
Oh well, that conflicts with my Yentl for number 5.
Bette Midler, Barbara Hershey. Oh wait a minute. Sorry. I'm sorry. That's next week. Favorite chick flicks.
Right.
I jumped the list. But oddly enough, this is very similar. Very similar film. Jaws.
Jaws is one of those things that I didn't swim in lakes for fear.
No, I didn't take baths. For fear.
I think we could. I think Jaws is worthy of a whole show, and Jaws knockoffs. I know we talked about that.
That's a great idea.
I think we don't want to dwell too much on this, but I agree with you. If you were a kid in the 70s, sharks were your monsters.
Well, I think this. I mean, do you feel like it's worthy to get on a monster list?
Yep, I do.
Okay, so
because not that it's supernatural, but it was a giant shark.
Yes, it was a giant, unnatural shark. I mean, he wasn't eating toxic waste and turn into a mutant or anything, but he is larger than he should be.
And what really, it's a horror movie. There's gore,
You know what's
or
funny?
it's a suspense film at the very least.
You know what's funny, and I never really put this together, and you might get this right away or appreciate it or disagree, but I had never really heard this viewpoint. I think I mentioned to you before, I certainly mentioned it in the Geek Shell and Harrod podcast, that I recently rewatched a couple of 70s Hollywood documentaries. One is called A Decade Under the Influence. It's a 3-part thing that IFC did about 10 years ago. It's fantastic, just about that incredibly creative decade and all the directors that came out of there. The other one is called it's called Easy Riders, Raging Bulls.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a companion to the book that Peter Biskind did. But in there, when they get to Jaws, I think it's in that one, the documentary version of the book. I think it's in there. When they get to Jaws, they cut to an interview with Roger Corman. And he says, when I saw Jaws, my first response was, oh my gosh, they did it. They did a creature feature, a B movie. They made a B movie creature feature the way I have. All the stuff that I've been trying to do for 20 years, they did it, but they did it with a budget.
Yeah.
And this is what it is. And that's immediately what he saw was like, they made a Roger Corman film with a bunch of money. And that's what it was.
And more than a week to film.
And more than a week to film, exactly. Yeah. What's extraordinary, and again, there's probably not much I can say about Jaws that even novices about Jaws don't already know.
Yeah, there's actually, I know somebody who has a Jaws podcast.
Really? It's just all they do is talk about Jaws week in and week out?
Yep.
I suppose you could, but again, it's also one of those movies. I think it's near perfect, like we mentioned earlier with The Thing and certain other films. If it's on and it's at a certain point, I stop. I gotta watch the thing, even though I've seen it 8 million times. But what's brilliant about it? There's so many things that are brilliant about it. So many bits of dialogue and character moments, and just shot by shot. Every shot in this thing is iconic. But as everyone knows, I'm sure you know, or most. Or even armchair aficionados know, as we're talking about this as a monster-centric, podcast and these monster movies, the shark didn't work. The mechanical shark didn't work, and Spielberg has said, he's been on record as saying, just about every piece of footage that did work made it into the film. There's very little that worked of the functioning shark that we left out, because we had to take every scrap where it was working and stick it in the film. But, and I'm not sure if it would have worked. I think it still would have worked. I think it still would have been a big movie, and it still would have launched his career. But as far as the impact that it had and the build-up, I mean, a lot of the stuff in the 70s anyway has a build-up. I mean, there's an incredible opening with Jaws, but then when it builds, before you actually get to see the thing, it's a nice, takes its time kind of build-up, very much like something else that I'll get to in a minute, which I left. Well, it's actually on the list, and we'll see what you think about that. But the shark wasn't there, and I think that it's incredibly much more effective because the shark isn't there, and it's implied, and you're only getting glimpses. And I think it's true that what everyone's always said, it made it that much more terrifying.
Less is more.
Less is more, and it added to the anxiety of the water. I don't like the water. I will not go in the ocean. My wife keeps begging me that if we get to Hawaii that we're going to be out in the middle doing ski. I said, no. And she says, what's the big deal? It can't just be that movie. I said, well, that's part of it. But more than that, the anxiety for me is not being able to see what's beneath me.
On my honeymoon, when I was with my wife on the Jaws ride,
that's right.
That actually freaked me right out. Like, it just was like that childhood fear of Jaws. For a minute there, I was creeped right out. And I say this also about my pants during the King Kong ride, but it really hit something like a nerve. So I've got to accept this, because I know that movie actually scared the hell out of me. So I watch it all the time now. But
I think it's still effective and also surprising. And we got to get to your next one. Surprising,
which is not as good as Jaws.
just how graphic it was able to be for a PG movie. I'm not sure if 20 years later some of those cuts would have made it into the rating. I don't know if it would have worked. But there's my. I mean, these are all. See, you're kind of making it sound like I'm picking the AFI list of the greatest. AFI, American Film Institute, is that what it is? Not Action Figure Insider, but
you know what? I'm so sad. I thought it was actually.
No. I meant the American Film Institute. But a lot of my stuff you could say, well, he's picking safe stuff as well. Like I'm not picking.
It's okay to like.
Critters.
I think a lot of people would turn around and say that I'm being a contrarian hipster.
Yeah, you're being snooty.
Yeah, well, yeah, man. I got to finish my Pabst Blue Ribbon, and then I'll tell you off.
Right, with your mesh cap.
I've got my
mesh trucker cap.
I've got my mesh trucker cap. No, actually, I have a Sherlock Holmes hat on.
Speaking of Sherlock Holmes, what's your number 6?
Evil of Frankenstein.
Oh, man.
It's a Hammer Frankenstein film.
Nice
It is arguably not the best one. The best one I would really, if I had to pick the best Hammer Frankenstein, hands down, Curse of Frankenstein. Evil of Frankenstein is my...
Curse is Christopher Lee, right?
Yes, and nobody topped Lee as the monster.
Right.
It is absolutely... And, of course, combined with Cushing really being the monster in these is Baron Frankenstein. And he is really the joy of all these films. His Baron Frankenstein is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Evil of Frankenstein is sort of a loosely knit sequel to Curse. The reason I like it is it's the first Frankenstein movie I ever saw. I saw it on Christmas Day. I think I was about 6 years old. I was convinced it was a Universal Monsters film because I didn't know any better. I don't know who the hell played it on Christmas Day, but
yeah, that's kind of odd.
Absolutely had a deep impact on me. So it's not the best. It is one of my favorites. The monster makeup is meant to look like the Universal Monsters Frankenstein because they were distributed by Universal at this time. So you can see where the confusion came in as a kid. I had a Frankenstein doll. It looked like the Frankenstein doll, So definitely was one of my earlier exposures to the character and monsters in general. So I love it there. We
could do a whole episode on Hammer.
Maybe sure could.
Maybe we should, because we both love the Hammer horror stuff.
That might get a little blue though, because as a teen I started to like Hammer for 2 different reasons.
I know what one of the reasons is.
I hope you know both reasons.
It's a palindrome.
Yes.
The singular is a palindrome.
Yes.
Yeah. So there you go. All right. My next one is. All right. You ready for this? Now this could be controversial as well because not a film as such, more of a TV film, but it was a 2-night miniseries, and that's Salem's Lot, 1979.
You're really hitting. What you're doing is you're hitting all that stuff that was talked about in my schoolyard. Salem's Lot scared my entire 6th grade class.
To this day.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't scare me the way certain things do, but that vampire, that is the single scariest vampire in the history of vampires.
I agree. He is really, really well done.
And it's funny because it was just on a couple of weeks ago, and we were flipping around. We're like, is this what I think it is? And we got to like the last, 90 minutes of the 2-part thing, and we just stuck with it. And I hadn't seen it in probably maybe 15 years or so. David Soul is the lead. James Mason, of course, is the other man who lives with the vampire in the house. So James Mason's great in it. But there's a moment. Well, first off, I remember. Do you remember the thing where the kid visits the dead kid visits his buddy and is hovering outside the
yeah.
Christ, that is terrifying. Then there's a moment where the vampire comes in the kitchen, grabs these 2 parents of the kid that James at 17. What was his name? The kid that was in it. Who was
I called him James at 17.
James at 17.
Yeah.
And the vampire grabs their heads and boom, knocks their heads together and kills him. And then he's about to kill the kid. And there's a priest in the room too. And James Mason says, "Come on, Father. Or however he did it. He said, your faith against my vampire." He didn't say it like that, but he's like, "Come on, you think you're so tough? Like, what are you going to pray that this kid's not going to get?" I mean, was really scary and graphic stuff for a television movie. And what's more, and I forgot this until it happened. Do you remember the ending?
I haven't seen it probably since
my God.
college.
It is incredible. The capper, just when you think it's over, it's not quite over. And the capper is shocking and heartbreaking and
don't spoil it for me. I want to rewatch
okay.
that.
All right,
Yeah.
all right, you have to. But that's and the vampire, whose name is Chester Barlow, played by Reggie Nalder,
yeah,
who was also in an episode of Star Trek, the original series, Journey to Babel. He played, was it a Romulan he played? No, he played an Andorian. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's his other big claim to fame is
he was kind of he had some third-degree burns on his face.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, and he got around, I think, because he was a good character actor.
What else was he? Do you anything else that pops into mind that he was in, or the genre stuff he was in?
He popped up on Fantasy Island once. He was in what's that? Dracula's Dog. He popped up in Mark of the Devil. All these these things. Star Trek. I remember. He's a character actor. He didn't get around a lot, and I think that also was one of the reasons he was so impactful as Barlow, which is definitely his best role.
Oh, you know what else he was in? And I realized this because it was on a couple years ago, and I was like, oh, that's the guy from... He was in Hitchcock, The Man Who Knew Too Much.
Oh, wow.
He's one of the heavies in that. All right, so there's my number
Mark
6.
of the Devil is the one I remember the best because he... I have a Mark of the Devil vomit bag in my bathroom on the wall. It was a promo for the movie.
Really?
If it's too much, you'll throw up. So, anyways, let's go through.
That's awesome.
My number. I don't know if this is 6.
I think it's 7. No?
7? No, I think it's 6. Is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, my number 6 is Blackula.
Yeah,
it's got a goofy title. It is made better than it should be. Like it was, it was done during the era of blaxploitation. It was meant to be a goof. They got William Marshall to play Mumambe. I said that wrong. I just watched it last night.
Who's Mumambe?
He's the prince who is cursed by Dracula to walk the earth and be called Blackula. One of there's a couple of things that are dated in the film. Obviously, the funky, groovy stuff doesn't really work too well. Blackula is resurrected by 2 interior decorators.
Come on.
Who were not the most subtle gay men performances I've ever seen.
Oh, that's fantastic.
They're a little bit how you say mincing about, which
on fire.
Yeah, to the point of like, okay, I get it, and you do find out that Dracula's a big old racist in the film, but the movie is actually it is well directed. By a first-time film director who was actually African American. William Marshall gives it a real bit of class as Blackula. It has some great supporting people. Gordon Pinsett's in it.
Gordon
Pinset, and his Newfie brogue is really coming out in it. I noticed. He's a Canadian. He's from Newfoundland.
Would you say his Newfie brogue? You mean his accent?
Brogue, yeah, his accent.
That's I've never heard that before.
Well,
Newfoundland.
Newfoundland accent. It sounds a bit quasi-Scottish. You can kind of tell it coming out.
Nice.
All us Canadians have accents, but they're different.
Newfie, say it again.
Newfie brogue, like
Newfie brogue. I love it.
Yeah, you can. He's hiding it, but I can hear it
every time we do these podcasts. I always learn a thing or two from you. You're so learned. You're like Michael Learned.
So what?
I can call you Michael Learned.
Yeah, so
you're
such
learned.
a wise guy. Anyway, I love Blackula, and there's a sequel that's not as good.
Do you have the figure? There's a figure that finally got made.
I actually have an 8-inch figure my buddy Martin at Distinctive Dummies made. I really like it.
Speaking of, are they the ones that made the Salem's Lot figure? You need to track one down.
They made a 12. They're making a 12-inch one too right now.
I just want the 8-inch. Can you track? You can track one down for me?
I'll try.
I'll pay for it, of course.
I'll try.
I'm good for it.
I used to have one.
I know.
So what's your number 6?
As usual, You never, as usual, you should be thinking.
I never think of you.
I bet Lindsay would love this.
Yeah.
I should give it to him.
Lindsay loves everything, so it's.
I know it's tough to narrow it down.
You're a man at the buffet. You're a guy at the buffet of life who likes everything.
At the smorgasbord.
Yeah.
Well, I'm particular. Like I like lots of stuff, but I wouldn't have the cast of Different Strokes action figures in my house. I wouldn't go that far.
Yeah, but
even though I have the DVD box set. All right, so you did that. So I got to take Blackula off my list. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Here we go. Here's another one. Now this is going to be hugely controversial. We got to wrap this up very quickly.
Yeah, we do.
This is going to be hugely controversial, and I'll tell you why. Because I was very much debating putting this on the list because it's one of those films that I think is fan-freaking-tastic. And then the very end of the film, is so bad and so jarring that I don't and cannot recommend the film to other people. And yet I'm trying to open up my mind and my heart and say, I'm going to tell people about this if they haven't seen it. It's called The Mist. And it was done.
Yeah, I had the audio book of that in high school.
It was a Stephen King story, and it was the screenplay was written by and then directed by Frank Darabont, who's a very bright, very sharp guy, does great stuff. And I don't want to say much more than that. It's a great survival kind of story where it's a microcosm of people types stuck in this supermarket when there's mist all over town. It's in New England. And they're all kind of trapped in this supermarket. Every time you can't see 10 feet in front of you, and there are creatures, incredible design, these amazing.
That's a Frank Darabont, right?
Yeah, Frank Darabont. Yeah, these amazing creatures are out there in the mist, and if you step 10 feet this way or that way, you're probably going to get your face bitten off. The cast is crazy but great. Thomas Jane is the lead. Andre Braugher is in it. Marcia Gay Harden, Toby Jones,
Eddie Deason.
Love who?
Eddie Deason.
Eddie Deason, the guy who played the mayor in Jaws, is in it.
Really?
No,
that guy can't be alive.
No, but they were together in 1941. They're stuck on the Ferris wheel together.
Okay.
But it's really good, and that's all I'm going to say because if and when people see it and they want to talk about it with spoilers, they can hit me up on the site or whatever because it's so good. And then something happens I don't want to say, and
I know
it hurts my soul.
Yeah, it does. It's heartbreaking.
But people argue that. People totally argue against me. And that
it's not in the original story. I know
it's
that.
not in the original story.
Yeah.
But people say it has merits for the very reasons that I hate it. But I'm gonna be the bigger person and put it on my list because the creatures are great. There's great suspense. The writing is fantastic. There's a couple moments that are some of my favorite just moments where Thomas Jane is like, we gotta get my son and I gotta get out of here because it's starting to kick off the craziness and the people.
It's got that typical early 70s downer ending and
beyond.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go to the net. What's your next one? What do you got?
I choose The Mummy by Hammer.
Nice.
It's my favorite Mummy
movie.
movie.
That's Christopher Lee too.
Yes, and I love a Mummy movie. I think all of the Universals are great. Why this one's my favorite is I am not a huge fan of Imhotep, the original one. It's not much of a mummy movie. There's only a mummy in it for like 10 minutes. Right. So I really like and the rest of it is sort of an Egyptian remake of Dracula. It's a good film. It's a solid film. But I've always been more of a fan of Karras, and I even love the ones where Lon Chaney Jr. is kind of drunkenly stumbling around. But this one is Cushing and Lee at their best. They've sort of remade the first, or they've sort of remaking in a Universal movie. It's Karras again. Really, absolutely one of my favorites, and I've watched it dozens of times. I watch it more than a lot of Universal films.
Wow,
so that's one of my favorites. So,
and is it easy to is it easy to get on DVD? For
absolutely,
people?
Yeah. I think there's a 3-pack running out there with Horror of Dracula, Curse of Frankenstein, and this Mummy.
I haven't seen that in ages. I used to have a Hammer set. I don't know what the hell happened to it, but I had some good I had some really good Hammer stuff, and then I had some of like the tail end of the end of Hammer. Like
I have the VHS box set that came out like in '94, and it's some guy sold it to me, and he goes, "It's got a misprint on it. It's going to be worth money because instead of saying Horror of Dracula, it says Horror or Dracula on the box."
Oh.
And I still have it. Like, why don't I throw this out? I have it on DVD.
You're waiting for the price to peak.
Oh yeah, 7 cents right now. So, what's your number?
The guy
7?
was right. It is worth something. My number 7 is a little something we're going to call The Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Okay, well that's good because that's actually mine. That's my number 7 as well.
Oh, okay.
I love this film. I love the creature. He's iconic. I tie mine with the Wolfman because I couldn't pick. It's
you're doing that thing.
I did that thing. I'm sorry.
You did that thing.
I just did it
wish
once.
I'd known.
No, I just did it once. So, anyways, we share a love for the creature. I'm
going to add Rhinestone to mine. I'm going to tie it with Rhinestone, the Sylvester Stallone.
I know what it is.
Dolly Parton film. Okay, I wasn't sure if you did. Yeah, because I'll tell you what. A lot of that stuff, it's easy for the kids to poke fun and point fingers and go, it's so dated, it's black and white, what are they doing? I can't understand them. True, but some of the stuff is dated, and then some of it's not. Like there's some stuff that's incredibly violent and scary still and still has effect. There are bits of each of these things where the dialogue, the sexism and all that stuff is dated. Creature's dated in parts, but also it's kind of slightly hardcore in parts. Like
he's
creepy, and remember this was in 3D when this thing first came out. It was in 3D. And by the way, the new super cool Blu-ray box set I got of the Universal Monsters.
I got that too.
Comes with a 3D version of Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Did you lose your 3D glasses like an idiot, like I did?
We don't have a 3D. Do you have a 3D TV?
I thought it was old school 3D.
No,
like just blue and red.
No, it's new school 3D.
Oh.
You have to have the 3D.
So I thought I lost my, blue and red.
No.
Oh.
No, you goof. No, it's like 3D TVs and stuff. But more than anything, the design for that creature. I know this is cliche. It's been said 8 billion times. It's one of the greatest, if not the greatest classic monster design.
Designed by a woman.
That's right. It's designed by women. Who knew they could do things like this? Women. That's a joke, people. It's a joke. It's supposed to make me sound like Fred Flintstone. It was a joke. Women clearly can do more than.
You still use the word toots a lot.
Yeah, smack them on the bum when I'm at Target. Come on, toots, bag up my stuff. Smack.
As you put your cigar down when you do that, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
It's a joke, people. Come on. Anyway, that's up there. So who goes next?
I guess I'll go next because
you go next. Okay.
My next one is Mad Doctor of Blood Island. Although
what the fuck? You just made that up.
I did not. This is a trilogy, the Blood Island trilogy, made in the Philippines by Eddie Romero.
That's the name of your tax guy.
That is true too. It's now I've lost my. These are all-star John Ashley, who is famous to the start of the A-Team narration. He was the producer of the A-Team.
He does the narration?
If you can find them. Yeah. So he's got that cool voice.
And you can afford them.
Yeah.
And you can stomach George Peppard's black gloves.
Yeah.
Then you too can hire.
But Ashley owned a chain of drive-in theaters and would make these films with, I think, not Independent International. I can't remember the name of the company, but they're wonderfully made, loosely.
American International?
No, it's not that. Independent International, but there's another company that worked with them. Hemisphere made these films. They all have Sam Sherman commentary on the DVDs. I highly recommend them.
Nice.
They are low-budget schlock, and the reason I love them, because I keep putting this in there, because they're not they're not great films, but they are fun, is they used to play on the Elvira show when I was in high school.
Oh, Elvira, what happened to her? She's still alive?
She's still around. She still looks great, and she retweeted me last week.
I beg your pardon?
I tweeted with Elvira, and
not many men can say that they were.
You know what? This year, I have had Jane Badler retweet me, Diana from V.
Oh,
and Elvira responded to me. Now, if I can get Marky Post, that is like my 80s ladies.
That's your trifecta.
That is the trifecta.
I once saw Marky Post up at Runyon Canyon when I was on a hike.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say. I once saw Marky post
That's more than I've seen Marky post.
on a high.
I loved her.
I know you did, especially because isn't she the one in the opening credits of Fall Guy? Doesn't she walk toward the camera in a bikini?
Could be
A two-piece,
yeah.
Or is that Heather Schmether?
Can't remember. You know what? I was more of a fan of hers from Night Court, oddly enough, and I love that episode of Buck Rogers she's in. So what is your next?
My next of kin would be a little something called Alien, 1979.
Yep.
Directed by Ridley Scott, starring Sigourney Weaver, as my brother called her when he came back, and he had a crush on her for about a year. My brother Jack, Sigourney Weaver.
No crush on Harry Dean Stanton.
Yaphet Kotto. By the way, have you seen the trailer? You got to see this thing. There's a trailer for the video game, which is called
you know what I heard? Oh, yeah, that's right. We didn't talk about it. I heard
my
you
God.
talk about it.
I don't know. It answers the question, what happened to Yaphet Kotto? Where's he been for the past whatever years? Apparently he's been living behind a dumpster at Lou's Corner Bar or something, because I don't know he's missing a tooth in the front. He's got things growing out of his face.
Oh.
He just looks very
the last
bad.
time I saw him,
pounds.
The last time I saw him was on a Michael Moore TV show where it was, who will get a cab first.
Oh.
And Yaphet Kotto was standing there holding roses and well dressed, and no cabbie would stop for him. And when they'd stop for Michael Moore, he'd go, "Why won't you stop for famous actor Yaphet Kotto?" And it was really well done. But that's the last time I saw him.
He caused quite a bit of excitement on the set of Live and Let Die, because he was endorsing the Black Panther movement. And he was kind of tough to get along with, I guess, on the set of that. I can just imagine.
He has to have one of the craziest Bond deaths ever.
Oh, absolutely! I can just picture the lunch breaks, Roger Moore and Yaphet Kotto like sitting at opposite tables. Like, what did those guys talk about in 1972? He also there's a great story that Ridley Scott tells about Alien, where he just kept, because there's a lot of improv. If you watch Alien again and again, broken record here, another one of those films in my top 20 of just watchability, where every freaking scene and every line of dialogue and every performance and everything, I could watch it over and over and over and over and over again. And much as I do love the second one, we don't really talk about the third and fourth, but the second one is a brilliant piece of movie making. It's a different kind of film. It's an action type thing. I don't think it can hold a candle to what Ridley Scott did with Alien. It just atmosphere, design, tension.
I think that's another one. You've picked another one where we could do a whole show about it. I mean, the toys, the impact on their culture. So let's not, let's put a pin in that, because it's a good topic, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and also, just like your Jaws thing, it did inspire a lot of copycats.
Oh boy, did it! And I've watched every single one of them.
Yeah, me too. I remember one. I can't even think of the name of it, but it was so bad. But I love it. I love every bit of it. It's
Creature, Extra,
Creature,
the Galaxy of Terror. Oh, classic.
The Alien can't be bettered. The design, Giger. It's just like one of those things where just everything, the planets all line up the right way, and all these things happen just to make a bit of a miracle that probably shouldn't have worked, but did. And it's only Ridley Scott's second feature, for God's sake.
The fellow in the Big Chap, I think that's what they called him, right? Big Chap?
They did, yes.
Is a guy by the name of Eddie Powell. And Eddie Powell also played one of the mummies in a Hammer mummy movie.
Oh, nice.
And actually, he was in a lot of Hammer films. Oh, but that's not surprising, because he's British, and they filmed.
I thought the guy was. I thought he was a big. Wait, you're talking about in the alien suit?
In the alien suit, yeah.
I thought it was a big, Ethiopian basketball player. Was 9 feet tall.
No, it was Eddie Powell.
Or it was Eddie Powell.
It was Eddie Powell.
You sure?
Absolutely.
All right, I believe you.
He was uncredited as the Big Chap, but he was a big boy.
So I would put that in on my. It's perfection. The creature's amazing. The tension, the score, There's good chunks of it, good major chunks of this film where there is no score, there's no music.
Yeah.
The tension just builds, and Sigourney's the first major thing that she ever did, and what's fascinating about it, the documentaries, the making ofs on these DVDs are almost as interesting as the film. I swear, because all the things that could have gone wrong, the way these actors got along and didn't, and Yaphet was one of those people that Scott said he was just so, because they improv a lot. If you watch it, there's a lot of improv going on. Like they're riffing on, like a bit of dialogue gets thrown out, and then they're answering a certain way and whatever. And of course, everyone's talked about the chest bursting scene where it was, it's been talked about.
It's kind of improv, yeah.
It's kind of improv. They didn't know what was going on. And Yaphet Kotto used to come to set and go, "I'm not dying today.
Yeah.
I'm not dying today. I'm going to kill that mother effer. Today's the day I'm going to kill it, and I ain't dying." And Scott didn't know how to take him. Like, is he trying to get another day's work out of this, or like what the? But he just he got so into it that he was like, no, it ain't killing me. Like he really wanted to be the guy that that killed this thing. But it's just great. Everybody in it is wonderful, and I love it to death. And again, I love it in a way. I don't have a love for all of them. I don't have a love for the Alien Predator. I don't have a love for the Alien franchise. This specific movie, my love for it is something akin to, Blade Runner or, certain things like, because I love these two, I don't love everything Ridley Scott did. Kubrick, I love certain Kubrick films more than others, but I would own, and I do own all of his films because I love his stuff. Whereas these are very specific, and that first Alien film is a very specific love. We got 2 left, right? Or 1 left for you?
One left for me.
1 left for you.
Yeah. This is going to be an odd way to end off, because I was going to end off with my Creature Wolfman tie.
Uh-oh.
But Frankenstein Conquers the World.
What the hell is that one?
It's a bizarre film that I adore by Toho, and I will give you the plot, because even as a kid, I was like, did another kid write this? But basically, during World War II, the Nazis give Frankenstein's still beating heart to the Japanese, who take it to research in Hiroshima. Unfortunately, Hiroshima gets bombed, and the nuclear waste turns Frankenstein into a giant monster who fights another giant monster. Yeah. And then they sequeled it by using clones of Frankenstein, which became War of the Gargantuas.
Wow, that's crazy.
It is what it is. I love the film. I saw it when I was 9 on the Channel 2 Buffalo Creature Feature Week, and I saw a lot of movies through that, but that one, it had me at hello.
What year are we talking?
Oh, late 60s, early. I didn't catch the date. Maybe I'd say 65, 66, but I could be wrong. Could be later. Beautifully, it's got Nick Adams in it as the American content. It's just a weird film, and I love weirdness. I love the imagination overriding logic in a film sometimes. Mm-hmm. And this is to coin a term, I guess it's kind of batshit crazy, and I love it. I mean, I there's no toys of this character, or I'd have a house full of this guy.
Wow,
it's one of the weird Toho things.
No, this is something that is easy to get and look up. Or
AIP released it in the 60s.
AIP. Now, who was the guy that was in charge of AIP?
Samuel Z. Arkoff.
Arkoff.
Samuel Bronkowitz.
Right.
He. But it's.
Hey, Donkey Kong, you still got it, Donkey Kong.
It's a beautiful piece of madness from Toho. The effects are great. I love Frankenstein Conquers the World.
And who played Frankie?
Oh.
Oh, I thought you said.
No, sorry. Nick Adams plays a scientist in it.
Nick Adams?
Yeah.
Johnny Yuma?
Yeah.
He killed himself.
I know.
Is it because of Frankenstein Conquers the World?
No, I think it may have been depression. Yeah.
So it wasn't Frankenstein Conquers the World.
You big downer. No.
Sorry. You're the one who picked it as your last
Monster
movie.
Zero. It wasn't Monster Zero either.
Johnny Yuma.
No, I don't. I only know Nick Adams from like junk like this.
And he was Johnny Yuma. He was a rebel, and he was in a great. I think Nick Adams was in a great World War II movie. I used to do a thing. I don't know if I ever told you this, but me and a couple buddies used to do a thing called World War Wednesday, every Wednesday night, whatever shows we were working on, whatever we were doing, we would convene at usually my place. We'd get like Chinese food or El Pollo Loco or whatever, and we must have seen every World War II movie made under the sun. And of course, it just ended up being Mystery Science Theater. We would just sit there and riff off the movie. But he made a great World War II movie called Hell is for Heroes. And Steve McQueen, it's one of the early Steve McQueen vehicles. Fess Parker, Nick, what's it called again? Nick Adams. Nick Adams. Somebody else, and Bob Newhart is in it. And they managed, and Bob Newhart's, it's one of his earlier things. They managed to get his telephone routine into the script.
No, they didn't.
They did too. So he ends up calling headquarters on the, they're out, in the field as these army guys. And what do you call the phone? It's like, no, you rev it up, He's doing that whole shtick, and he's calling the army base trying to get like reinforcements or something.
Doing the stammering and all that.
And they riff on his telephone thing. I swear to God, it's fantastic. I could be wrong about all of that, but I know for sure that McQueen and Newhart are in Hell is for Heroes. I don't know about Nick Adams, but he definitely killed himself, from what I understand, depression off the box office from Frankenstein Conquers the World.
Absolutely. That.
All right, you ready for my last one?
I am.
Controversial, probably. Is it a monster? I don't know. Do you care? Because you may not dig this movie at all, and I don't think you do. But it's a little known horror film from the 70s called The Exorcist.
Yeah, who didn't talk about The Exorcist?
It is still, for me, one of the scariest things ever. We just watched it again last week. I've seen it 100 times. It still packs a punch. For various reasons. I think I know why it packs the punches that it does.
Yeah.
But it's incredible. Very much like Alien and Jaws and the way these things built. It takes its time to build the tension. It's there's scarier stuff happening with her in the hospital having tests done that before they even get to some of the scary shit with her. And that's about 40 minutes into the movie. The characters are incredible. Ellen Burstyn has never been better. Sadly, first of all, Max von Sydow's in it. Like, come on. Max von Sydow, that 3 Days of the Condor. Strange Brew. Flash Gordon. Judge Dredd.
I like him in Judge Dredd.
Hannah and her sisters.
He adds gravitas.
Star Wars Episode 7.
I have almost nothing to add because I'm really not a big fan. I think I just don't dig Satan possession movies. But have you ever seen the blaxploitation knockoff of The Exorcist, which also stars Blackula star William Marshall? It's called Abby. And,
what?
Yeah, and I if you've ever seen I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker.
Yes.
There's a scene where the girl's having her time of the month, and they parody it with what everybody thinks is an Exorcist parody. It's a parody of Abby. Like,
what?
Keenan Ivory Williams is a smart cookie, and he actually parodied Abby, which 6 people got.
Oh my God.
I think William Peter, or is it William Peter Blatty? I think the studio, the Exorcist studio, tried to sue the makers of Abby.
The guy that wrote it.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I don't know why that name popped in my head, but the studio tried to sue the makers of Abby because it is such a blatant ripoff. I'm just trying to think. I will have to try and find the trailer for Abby, but it's just basically The Exorcist with a black cast.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it's incredibly effective. It's still scary as shit to me. And one of the names I was going to say that's in it is oh God, why can't I think of his name all of a sudden? It's terrible. Oh my gosh, Jason Miller.
Oh yeah,
Jason Miller, who plays Father Karras. Now, Jason Miller, not only at the time he even made Exorcist, he had won the Pulitzer. He wrote a play called That Championship Season. It won the Tony Award. He won a Pulitzer. And here he is acting in this film, which was, massive. He's also the father of Jason Patric, the actor Jason Patric.
Oh, I know him. Yeah.
But he was a raging alcoholic, which is sad because that's eventually what killed him. He died far too young, but he was a wonderful, wonderful actor. And on that note, I'm just going to say this and put this out there because I don't think anybody has seen it. There was a sequel called The Exorcist, The Reckoning. No, what's it called? The Quickening.
Is that the one with Richard Burton?
Oh, Richard Burton.
I've actually seen that one.
It's so bad. It's called, what's it called though?
Exorcist 2.
The Heretic. I think it's called The Heretic.
Yeah.
It is so bad and so monumentally effed up. I don't even know where to begin. It's terrible. But there was a third Exorcist made.
I remember that. It came out in the theater in the 90s, right?
In 1990, and it's called, I want to say it's called Legion or something like that.
Yeah. Nobody went to see it.
Nobody saw it. William Peter Blatty wrote and directed it. There were huge arguments between him and the studio on the film itself, how it was going to end. But it is, I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's one of those things that nobody remembers or knows about. It came and went. George C. Scott is basically playing the character that Lee J. Cobb played in the original. And it is very effective and very creepy. And it kind of blows up by the end and kind of falls apart. But there is some really, really disturbing stuff in it.
Do you remember the film that the director of The Exorcist made around that time called The Guardian?
No.
It was about a nanny who turns out to be... Yeah,
Friedkin?
I think Friedkin.
Really?
I hope I'm right here.
Okay.
I just remember it saying from the makers of The Exorcist, and it was about a tree worshiper. Oh, man.
What?
Yeah. Hang on. It was William Friedkin. Yes, I'm right. Okay, I can keep going. It was about like a tree spirit or something like that. The nanny wanted to sacrifice the baby to the tree.
Oh, I do know this. This is sounding familiar to me now. Yeah?
And I just remember that because they kept on. I went to see the movie in the theater because you're from the director of The Exorcist, and it's just weird. It's a druid. That's it. It's a weird movie. It's nowhere near as memorable as The Exorcist.
Exorcist is and again, if no one's ever seen it or if you haven't seen it in a long time, it is truly, and I really do believe this. I don't think it's just hyperbole and like it's, the legend that it has. It truly is not for the faint of heart. And I think it's because it's not so much the subject matter as it is that it's a 12-year-old girl that these things are happening to. That's always made it so scary and disturbing that the devil, if it is the devil, that the devil has chosen this 12-year-old girl to inhabit and have her, do these things. There's also this is another sidebar, but William Peter Blatty also wrote and directed a film called The Ninth Configuration. Have you ever seen that?
I've heard of it.
Oh man, that packs a punch. Stacy Keach and Scott Thompson? No. Scott,
I would see that film.
Scott, the guy that... Do you watch Walking Dead?
No.
Okay, well, do you remember...
that guy.
In Cold Blood?
Yes.
Not Robert Blake, but the other guy. He's called Scott something. He's a character guy. You've seen him in a billion things. You've seen him in a million things. He's in it as well, but it's a very underrated... I think the original title was Twinkle Twinkle Killer
Scott
King.
Wilson?
Scott Wilson. That's it.
Yeah.
Where'd you pull that out of?
Oh, Magical Box. Okay. Yeah, okay. I don't watch The Walking Dead. I know who Virgil is.
Okay, yeah, he's in Walking Dead.
Herschel. I just don't watch The Walking Dead.
Killing me.
You know what? We have friends over, and I walk the dog. I don't like it.
I appreciate it, but I'll tell you, if I miss 2 weeks, I'm not. It's not killing me.
Yeah.
The only thing I have to do is stay away from the internet because everybody fucking blows it on Monday morning. Everything, and I got to stay away from it.
Dude, I just finished Game of Thrones, and that was impossible because I just did it like a month ago because I was the last human being on the planet who gave that a try.
It's like it ends up being peer pressure to find these things, and I
was just bored. and I thought, well, I'm going to give this Dragon show another try because I'm not a big fantasy guy, but surprisingly.
But see, that's to me, I'm not a big fantasy guy either, but I would like a little more fantasy in it. I wouldn't mind.
I would prefer less.
I prefer more dragons and more zombies and more monsters than people talking about taxation of trade routes and also having a conversation in the front of the room while 6 women are putting things in each other in the background every time somebody has a 5-minute conversation. There's some horrible
I
Skinamax film background.
Horrible Skinamax. Your 1980s self just went. You have become jaded, Jason.
I'm sorry. I used to love Skinamax, but anymore.
Anyway,
on
that note, happy Halloween.
We started way off topic, and we ended way off topic.
And get ye to the video store if that is still a thing in your town, and check out some of these films.
Yeah, who just came back from the 80s video store?
I have a video store in my town.
So yeah, and we'd love to get your feedback on these films, whether you've seen them or not. We'd love to get your feedback on what you think if you eventually do see them. And we'd love to hear what else you'd add to the list, other stuff that you think would be worth checking out. And that's all I have to say.
That's all I got to say other than happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, everybody.
I'm going to go check out Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, which is the annual tradition here.
And I'm going to do Steel Magnolias, which is my tradition.
Madame Suzatska was out?
Madame Suzatska was completely broken.
Oh. Happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy Halloween, everybody. Bye.